Welcome to the next unit, Against the Wind. The essential question, the driving question for this unit is, how are leaders forged from circumstances? Before we begin the blast, let's take a minute to think about and predict what this blast will be about. Based on what you have seen and heard so far, what do you think the subject of this blast will be? The word leader has been used frequently. Who is a leader you admire from literature or the real world? The person can be living or dead. What did you admire about this leader? After you've thought for a moment, open the Padlet. Start by writing your first and last name. Then write the name of the leader you most admire. It's permissible to Google the person to get the correct spelling of the name. Finally, write the reason you admire this leader. Now we'll read and annotate the text of the blast. Use the annotation tools in StudySync to highlight and make comments and notes. Use the annotation checklist for a list of what to annotate. Highlight any unfamiliar word. Note the meaning of the word as it is used in the text. Highlight any foreign words or phrases, technical terms, or academic words, and use print or digital resources to determine or clarify the definitions. Note the meaning of the word as is used in the text. Highlight imagery or sensory details and note the impact. Reread passages that you found confusing. Note what was confusing and your understanding. Use background knowledge to make inferences about anything that is not directly stated. Note your conclusions. Ask questions about unfamiliar terms and references. Summarize or paraphrase important information. Now that you've read and annotated the text selection, let's talk about the text selection. Discuss each question with your partner. Be prepared to report your discussion to the class. Be prepared to respond to what other students discussed. According to the text, what inspires stories we tell about heroes? The text says, the stories we tell about heroes are often inspired by actual events. Why was Joan of Arc an unlikely leader? Joan of Arc was an unlikely leader because she was a poor, uneducated woman in medieval France who began to hear voices when she was 13. How did Joan of Arc become a hero? Joan of Arc became a hero when she and her followers successfully drove the English out of France. Now we'll move on to the research part of the blast. To start, please choose a poker chip from the bucket. We're going to divide into groups to complete this part of the blast. Please move so that everyone with the same colored chip is sitting together. If you have a black chip, you will research the most important leadership qualities according to leaders around the world. If you have a white chip, you will research the biggest heroes of Hurricane Harvey. If you have a red chip, you will research Learning from Leadership's Missing Manual. If you have a blue chip, you will research Joan of Arc. If you have a green chip, you will research Joan of Arc, warrior and military leader. Your group will report the answers to these questions. Number 1, what are the source's key ideas? Number 2, what evidence from the source is new or interesting to you? Number 3, how does the source help to answer the driving question? And in case you forgot, the driving question is the same as the essential question. How are leaders forged from circumstance? Now let's take a look at the number crunch. What is your prediction for where we get the number 70? You've read the blast, done some research, and thought about the driving question. Let's see what you think about leaders and sacrifice. The quick poll question is, do good leaders need to be willing to make sacrifices for their beliefs? Do you believe? Yes, in order to convince others to follow them, leaders must be willing to lose everything for their cause. Maybe. Some sacrifices show a leader is dedicated to his or her cause, but leaders should be careful about how much they lose. No, a good leader isn't reckless and knows when to cut losses. Please record your answer. Now it's time to write your blast. You have 280 characters to respond to the driving question, how are leaders forged from circumstances?